How did each of you kind of like learn and then unlearn your Zionism?
I never learned Zionism all the way because I had a prophylactic. I had a Zionist condom on, which was my anti-Zionist father who sent me to a Zionist summer camp.
Yeah.
And to Hebrew school in preparation for my bar mitzvah, with, a rabbi who would pull me aside and say, look, Daniel, your father's a smart guy and he does good medical work, but his views on Israel are garbage and you shouldn't listen to him. And that was the class in which we would play like board games in which, you land on a certain square. It says, talk to the PLO, move back 3 spaces. Literally.
Wow.
I remember that vividly.
At least talk to them. At least you talk to them as opposed to do something more violent, which is what they probably wanted the game to consist of. But
right, but they were teaching
I guess
us
they're
that
liberal Zionists, not right-wing Zionists.
Yeah, they like to
perhaps
pretend that everything
no,
they do is nice.
My synagogue was right-wing, basically.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sick.
My summer camp was liberal. My summer camp was kibbutz, socialist, and it was a utopia. It was heaven on earth for me. I loved it. I got along so much better with my peers at camp. It was musical. This is where I learned to write parody songs. This is where I could let my freak flag fly in the sense of just being able to fully be myself and hang out with kids of all ages. And, so it was just great. And that's where I started. I had Israeli counselors called madrichim. I learned some Hebrew. And there was a fair amount of indoctrination. Everything was related to Israel, and ultimately, the ultimate takeaway is Aliyah is better than no Aliyah. There is better than here.
Aliyah is going back. It means going up, right? Going up to the mountain. It means
yes.
when you're a Jew and you go back, quote unquote, to Israel.
Right. It's funny. It's the same word that's used in synagogue when you go up to read the Torah. So it's like you're actually elevating yourself spiritually. And the word for leaving Israel, emigrating out of Israel, is yerida, which means going down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Droopy, the elevator dog, going up, sir, going down, sir. So anyway, it was very compelling and it was, tempting, but I never fully bought it because I've always been very sensitive to manipulation and also like group sentiment and just the sentimentality of Zionism and the kind of just a national identity. I just never felt a hunger for it. There's something kind of unkosher to me about it because I just liked being a North American Jew, Right. I didn't want that disparaged, and it was taken for granted that we were somehow unhappy. So I stayed in the youth group just for the perks, and enjoying it so much. And there started to be more space for dissent. I started having counselors who would bring in articles about Yesh Gavul, the group of Israeli soldiers. It's called Yesh Gavul means there is a limit, literally. And it was the Israeli soldiers who refused to serve in the occupied territories during the First Intifada. So I started, and then learning about the Palestinians, and there was more and more room. And then I became a counselor, and I tried to push the envelope. And once I tried to get about 3 minutes of Nakba content into a Independence Day activity, and I got a ton of pushback. And I kind of realized that
like Israeli Independence Day.
Yeah, Yom Ha'atzmaut, like a whole special day devoted to it where we play act, and it's a surprise to the kids. All of a sudden, the lights go out at dinner and we say, we have just been released from Auschwitz. What are we going to do? We could go to North America. We go here. We're going to go to Palestine and blah, blah. And then we take a boat trip and then we get there and there's British guards being all British and blokey. And then, of course, there's some Arabs running around in like towels and, it's like just terribly racist.
Wait, was this like play acting? Like
or did we hire real Arabs?
Yeah.
No, I'm wondering if you like had the kids like go and blow up the King David Hotel and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, it was a selective history, let's say.
Okay.
It was.
You really had people dressed up as Arabs though?
So when I was I don't remember if we did it when I was a counselor, but I do remember as a kid they would wake us up in the middle of the night. The activity was called Aliyah Bet, which is this second wave of Aliyah in the 1940s, and yeah, they'd wake us up in the middle of the night and say we've got to go, and it was always a surprise. And then we get out and then we're using flashlights, and there's like we hear, and usually the Israeli counselors would play the Arabs because they could speak some pidgin Arabic.
Really help you suspend your disbelief.
Exactly. But that's not the only Arabic content at summer camp. Every Friday night we would do Rikude Am, which is Israeli dancing, which I loved. And one of the songs on the cassette for the advanced Israeli dancing, after the little kids go to bed, the older kids get to stay up and do it, was like an Arabic song where we did some Arabic vibes movement. And that was always actually the best song. Yep. But I'm sure it was horribly talk about cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a whole country made out of it.
Yeah. And then what about your time in Israel?
Yeah, well, before that, I should also say, speaking of cultural appropriation, and it wasn't just summer camp. Year round, there was something called the Ken, which in Hebrew means nest. And in your local home city, there'd be activities all the way around all year round to keep people connected to the camp community. And every year there was something called Neshef, which is a pageant, but we'd always do a musical, and it was always a spoof musical. And I wrote some, and I ended up writing, music directing, and directing a show called Little Shop of Hummus, or Hummus, of course, as we pronounce it in the Zionist world. And what's hilarious about this show,
Israel should make a musical called Little Shop of Hamas about Umrah.
Little Shop of Hamas. Yeah, exactly right. Little shop of hummus, falafel. Stop at the little shop of hummus. I got to rhyme falafel with awful. But the thing is, the show was ostensibly about cultural appropriation and assimilation, how Jews are losing their culture.
Right. And
there was a big mean hot dog from outer space instead of the plant who comes and tries to sell him unkosher stuff and takes away his menorahs and whatever. But the location of the thing was a fucking falafel shop.
Yeah, right.
And this is our authentic Jewish culture that's being polluted.
You're losing your culture, the one we're just going to supplant right now.
That's right. Now, if we had been talking about the plight of Mizrahi Jews who were uprooted from Arab countries where they were Arabic speakers and fully integrated, that would have been one thing. But
Mizrahi Jews are non-Ashkenazi, are the Jews who are not Ashkenazi. They're
Middle Eastern
Jews. Yeah, just so people.
Yeah.
Mizrahi also called Sephardic.
East, well, there's actually I'm learning there's a distinction, but because Sephardic is more from Spain and Mizrahi is from the East. But
it's all non-Ashkenazi to me, so it's all Greek to me.
Exactly.
I know, problematic.
Yeah. Well, we're all on
another episode.
We're all on a learning curve. I could suggest some guests. I could suggest some guests for you, actually. But so anyway, Israel. Just to be brief, there is this trip called Workshop that kids do after high school.
Workshop shall set you free.
Workshop shall set you free. Exactly.
Yeah, that was right over the camp.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's slang Arbeit shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if you invert the first and last letters of Workshop, you get Pork Show, which is fun. And you go live on a kibbutz and you work on a kibbutz. And I worked in irrigation, and my first act of subterfuge or sabotage unintentionally was I was driving a tractor. I didn't have a driver's license at the time. I was driving a tractor with a big ass 12-meter pipe wagon behind me coming back from the watermelon fields or whatever. And I turned a corner.
Watermelon, little Palestinian subversion right there. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Little did I know. Of course, that was the watermelon thing had already been but I didn't know it. We didn't know anything. We saw the field workers coming in from Gaza every day. We were 20 kilometers from the Gaza border, had no idea what the reality was there. None. But anyway, I turned a corner a little too sharply and I heard a crash and a pop and all that. And I looked behind me and metal pipes are flying everywhere because there's a geyser 30 or 40 meters high. I ran over the main Israeli water line.
That's good. Good for you.
It was probably going to the Gaza settlements.
Yeah.
So that was a year of immersion sort of into Israeli society and a lot of different, it's not like Birthright. Birthright is this, it's sexual Zionism, pure and simple. They terrorize you at Auschwitz and then they say, here's the solution. This was more like, here, get to know the country, some of the good, some of the bad, but it was still carefully curated. So when I tried to arrange Palestinian guests or even anti-Zionist guests, there was always some security concern or whatever.
More dangerous when it's not overt propaganda, because it has some honest. You're like, well, they're not totally over the top. I mean, this is kind of, to me, it's like liberal Zionism, right? It's like, completely. Well, they're not totally biased. They understand Palestinians are human beings, and then you let your wall down a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's not unrelated to liberalism. I mean, see also the Democratic Party. So, and eventually I just had, when I got to McGill in Montreal, and I actually met some actual Palestinians, and I actually listened for the first time. Up until that point, they'd been sympathetic abstractions at best. All of a sudden I was like, yeah, pretty incomplete education, and I'm done with it. But it wasn't really until October 8th that I stepped up in any way to talk about this stuff